Alrighty, now that you're here, let's get this story underway. You've arrived for part 2 of this pastel painting, which I'm calling The Beginning and the End. My beginnings normally start with coffee, and this episode is sponsored by Jager, who kindly bought me 3 coffees via Buy Me a Coffee. You can see a portrait I did of her in the gallery of my Buy Me a Coffee page, and a video of painting her on this channel. Thanks, Jager. So here I am painting my friend's mother, and immediately I get frightened and go straight back to painting him with pastels because I'm pretty new to painting. This is my 56th painting and about my 10th portrait, and I'd never done an elderly person. And Mrs. Rosso Senior's got sort of honey-coloured hair. I hadn't done honey-coloured hair either. So, we all have this fight or flee response within us. And when I'm doing art, occasionally the flee response kicks in, and I just got to put everything down and run away and go, oh, it's just so hard. But you come back to it. You get your courage back, and away you go again. And I think that's why so many struggle with art, because we've all got this fight or flee response. And when it kicks in, we go, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. We tend to put everything down and give up. But in other parts of our lives, you get a new job, well, that can be pretty scary too. But we tend to stick it out. And you go, oh, well, I'm just going to learn. I guess it helps that you're getting paid for it. So, talking about scary, unfortunately, the blocking in phase for any painting is probably about 80%, 70 to 80% of the total time spent on a picture is just blocking in, just getting the colours sorted. And with portraits, I find that can leave my subject looking a bit scary. So I skipped quite a chunk of this this video to go just straight to filling in Mrs. Rosso's mouth. And if you've seen part 1 of the video where I'm blocking in her son's face, Augusto, same technique and very similar colours, just more furrows in the brow and wrinkles in the face. Anyway, I thought I'd just skip ahead. Mrs. Rosso ended up taking up most of my time on this painting. And I wanted to just leave her with her dignity and because it's a tough process getting painted. The artist can see the person in their mind's eye. You're trying to get what you're seeing on the image, your reference image, or if the person's in life, you're trying to transfer that through your fingers onto the canvas or paper. But for anyone looking on, it's like, whoa, what a mess! What are they doing? And I thought for this one maybe I wouldn't spend so much time on the messy bits. So this particular picture, I was really nervous when I started it. Not just because I'm still new to painting, but this would be a really, really important painting for Augusto. Because of the relationship he has with his mum. I thought there's something that I share with Augusto, and I thought I'd tell you a little bit about him. He was a late child to his parents. His mum was in her 40s when he was born, and we share a very similar story. His mum carried another child before Augusto, his older brother. Unfortunately, his older brother died 24 hours after being born. And Augusto posted about this on LinkedIn and said as doctors saw his life was fainting, a nun at the hospital baptised him and named him Juan. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Juan Carlos. Devastated and broken, my parents didn't lose their faith. 3 months later, Mum was pregnant again. I was on my way to this planet. Because of her age, Mum says it's probable they wouldn't have had a second child if Juan Carlos had lived through. Today she says she later understood he died so I could live. That's quite the thing to say, isn't it? He died so that I might live. Well, that's something I share with Augusto. My oldest brother died stillborn. My parents, when they were having kids, at that time it was normal to just have 2 children. So that would have made my older brother, he would have been the baby of the family, and I wouldn't have turned up because I'm number 3. So I've often thought, like Augusto, if my oldest brother hadn't died, it's unlikely I'd be here talking to you now. Funny how life works out. Anyway, Augusto did make it into the world, and now his mum's in her 80s. And one of the nicest posts Augusto ever did on LinkedIn has a photo where he's working from home, eating some local pastry that his mother had made, and she's sitting in the background. So he's sitting in the foreground on his PC eating this pastry. She's in the background looking at a phone. And in the post, Augusto writes a PS. He says, PS. In case you're wondering, yes, my mother is checking LinkedIn, trying to figure out the recent post madness from Kevin and Matt. I thought it's a little bit of internet surrealness that he's captured in that post just beautifully. So here I am trying to capture a likeness and blend her into the background, and certainly blend her hair into her scalp. And of course, as an older person, she actually had a lot of her colour left in her hair, but it's very fine. And so I just started with the darks and thought, you know what, I'll just keep going, and we'll see what happens. And as I have a lot of green in the garden background, every now and then I'll pick up a green and pull it into a hair or onto a face. And there's one green that I use later on, and often I'll go for a second opinion with my wife. She's a much better artist than I am, and has been through lessons, and so understands the mechanics more. I just paint by feel, right? So I'll go and watch some YouTube vids on how to do hair or how to do eyes or skin tones, and then inevitably, because I've got a short attention span, I go, you know what, I'm just going to go give it a go, and off I'll go and see what happens if I do it. So I tend to live my life intuitively rather than necessarily by, well, this is what my teacher taught me. Anyway, I always respect what my wife has to say, so if she's watching this video, she's probably snorting hilariously at that. But I do stop and think about what she said, and I'd use this green on her face, on Mrs. Rozzo's face, and my wife was like, oh, that's terrible. I can't use the description she said, but she said, you've got to fix that, you've got to get rid of that. And so later on I do tone it back and make more of it cream, but then I got rebellious and went, you know what, this is my painting, I'm going to leave the green on her face. So here I'm back in my happy place. I've sort of blocked in Mrs. Rosso's face as best as I can, and I go, yeah, it's time to pull out the pan pastels, because pan pastels just make me relax. And I'm now going to have a crack at her top. And we want the focus of the picture to be on their faces, not on their clothing or the background. Don't want everything in full detail. Even if a photo shows it in full detail, that's not how our eyes look at things. At a painting, you want to respect the viewer's brain and let their brain fill in the gaps and come to their own conclusions themselves. And I find the pan pastels are excellent for that. They're just going to suggest the clothing and patterns and musculature underneath. And I've got my, I think that's permanent reds selection and magentas. So sort of hot colours, which is a nice little play against Augusto's cool violets. And but it also brings in some of the colours from their faces, because there's plenty of reds and magentas in their face. And Mrs. Rosso had sort of like a floral pattern on her top, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to use the corner of my pan pastel applicator, little sponge palette knife, and we'll just put some dots on and see how that works out. And I thought, oh, that was pretty good actually. I was quite happy with the suggestion of the pattern rather than trying to get it exactly right. And then I had quite a bit of little dust particles, and I just put some glassine paper over the top and pushed them in. And then I regretted it because I had to blend them out. And here comes the bit of arrogance, right? Here's a bit of artist arrogance. Here's me now signing my mark on the picture, going, you know what, I'm done now. And here we are back again, because clearly I wasn't done. I think this was a bit where my wife had said, get rid of that green. But I'd looked at the furrows, you know, the age of Mrs. Rosso, and I was like, I just got to tone those back and make it more gentle. And yes, she is in her 80s, but let's not make those shadows so harsh, and gentled her eyebrow a little bit. And that the light you see bouncing on her forehead, and most of that is actually just the paper showing through, with just a little bit of General's charcoal chalk for the very white highlight. And I call this painting the beginning and the end, because in my eyes Augusto's mum began the journey by deciding to have him as a child, and it's up to Augusto to decide where to now take that journey. His mum has passed a baton to him and encouraged him to run with it, and he has. In a very nice way, he keeps returning to his mum and lets her know how grateful he is for his beginning. And now we're just about at the end of this painting. I hope you've gotten to know a little bit more about why I do portraits, because there's something special about each person I do. I'd like to thank Augusto and his mum, and thank you too for watching. See you again.